When it comes to military training, some programs go way beyond the usual drills and exercises. From grueling boot camps to insane survival challenges, there are training courses around the world designed to push soldiers to their absolute limits. 1. Breaking bricks with bare hands. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un went all out recently with a terrifying defense exhibition in Pyongyang. The event started with some insane martial arts stunts where the soldiers were smashing bricks, breaking planks, and pulling off brutal tricks. Kim, who's 37, was loving every second, sitting front row with his sister, Kim Yo-jong, and top military bigwigs. Yet soldiers were breaking concrete blocks with their hands, feet, and even faces, getting huge cheers from the crowd. At one point, a dude lay on a bed of nails with a concrete block on his chest, and another soldier smashed it with a hammer. If that wasn't intense enough, there was a shirtless guy taking hit after hit from long poles and walking away like it was no big deal. For the grand finale, a soldier smashed glass bottles, lay on the shards, and then let someone smash a concrete block on his chest with a hammer. The whole thing was shown on state TV, with anchors hyping up the soldiers' strength and bravery as proof of Kim's leadership. But it wasn't just about crazy stunts. This was all part of an exhibition called Self-Defense 2021, where Kim showed off North Korea's latest military gear. Think intercontinental ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, and long-range cruise missiles, some supposedly nuclear capable. Photos showed Kim strutting on a red carpet surrounded by giant missiles, making sure everyone knew just how advanced their arsenal is. During his speech, Kim took a shot at the US, blaming it for all the drama on the Korean peninsula. He called America the root cause of instability and said North Korea just wants an invincible military to keep itself safe. This all comes after North Korea's recent missile tests, including hypersonic and long-range cruise missiles. While the US keeps saying it doesn't want beef with North Korea, Kim's not buying it, accusing them of stirring up trouble anyway. The exhibition was a big deal. It's the first one of its kind since Kim took power in 2011. Alongside the massive ICBM, there were submarine-launched missiles, train-launched missiles, and other advanced weapons. Experts are saying some of the gear, like a missile mounted on an 11-axle truck, could be North Korea's biggest weapon yet. South Korea and the US are keeping a close eye on it all, but the exact details are still under wraps. Kim's message was pretty clear. North Korea isn't slowing down when it comes to weapons, and it's all about flexing while claiming it's for self-defense. 2. Grenade hot potato. The Chinese military has this insane training drill called hand grenade hot potato, and it's exactly as intense as it sounds. It's kind of like the childhood game where you pass around an object while music plays, and whoever's holding it when the music stops is out. Except in this version, the potato is a real live hand grenade. Yeah, an actual explosive. The stakes are a bit higher than your usual playground game. A group of soldiers gets in a circle and starts passing the grenade around while music plays. As soon as the music cuts off, whoever's left holding it has to throw it into a special pit. And they have to move fast because that grenade is live. They don't chuck it in time, well, things could get really messy. Apparently, the military has some strict safety measures in place, and only soldiers who are fully trained get to take part in this crazy drill. So, why even do something so risky? The whole point of this exercise is to teach soldiers how to stay calm under extreme pressure. Imagine being in a real combat situation where you've got seconds to make a life or death decision. This drill is meant to prepare them for that kind of stress. By forcing them into high-stakes moments like this, the military is basically training their minds to stay sharp and focused, no matter how crazy things get. Obviously, this kind of training has people talking. It's not every day you hear about soldiers casually tossing a live grenade around. Some military experts and politicians from other countries have raised eyebrows, wondering if this kind of drill is too extreme. But at the same time, you've got to admit it's effective. If these soldiers can handle the sheer panic of holding an active grenade, chances are they'll be pretty solid in an actual fight. It's definitely a controversial way to build mental toughness, but it seems to be working for the Chinese military. And while it might sound reckless to outsiders, the fact that no one's been hurt shows just how carefully it's planned out. Whether you think it's genius or just plain dangerous, you can't deny this training method is hardcore. 3. Cobra Gold. Cobra Gold is like the ultimate military team-up in Asia, bringing together countries from all over to train, bond, and tackle some big challenges. It's been around since 1982, starting as a way for the US and Thailand to strengthen their partnership. And now, it's grown into the biggest joint military exercise in Asia. Over 30 nations get involved, including heavy hitters like Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, all working together to make sure they're ready for whatever comes their way. The whole point of Cobra Gold is teamwork. It's all about getting different countries' armed forces on the same page so they can handle things together, whether it's a military conflict, a natural disaster, or something completely unexpected. The exercises are intense but super practical. Think live fire drills, amphibious landings, and command post simulations. They also run humanitarian missions, which means helping out local communities in Thailand with things like building schools or medical facilities. So, it's not just about fighting skills, it's also about lending a hand and spreading some goodwill. What's really cool is how Cobra Gold keeps evolving. This year, in 2024, around 9,000 troops showed up. And they didn't just stick to old-school training. They tackled modern threats like cyber warfare and even space-related disasters. The exercises also included cultural exchanges, where soldiers from different countries got to connect and learn about each other, making the bonds even stronger. Cobra Gold has been running longer than any other multinational military exercise in the world, which is pretty impressive. At its core, it's a symbol of how the US and Thailand have had each other's backs for decades, but it's also a way to keep the whole Indo-Pacific region secure and stable. 4. Spetsnaz. Spetsnaz is Russia's elite special forces unit, and they're known for being some of the toughest, most well-trained soldiers in the world. The name comes from Vojska Specialnogo Nazначenia, which means Forces of Special Designation. These guys handle everything from gathering intel to taking down terrorists, blowing stuff up, and carrying out intense combat missions. Basically, if there's a dangerous high-stakes job, Spetsnaz is the team for it. Getting into Spetsnaz is no walk in the park. The selection process is brutal, designed to weed out anyone who doesn't have what it takes mentally or physically. Candidates go through hardcore fitness tests, psychological exams, and tough training courses. What's interesting is that you don't need prior military experience to try out for Spetsnaz. Anyone who meets the criteria can apply, but you still have to finish basic military training first. Once you're in, the real grind begins. Their training is next-level intense. Physical fitness is a huge deal, so recruits spend a ton of time running, swimming, and doing obstacle courses. They also focus on building strength and endurance, with kettlebell lifting being a major part of the routine. These exercises are all about turning recruits into powerhouses who can handle anything. When it comes to combat, Spetsnaz doesn't mess around. They train in hand-to-hand fighting using techniques like rukopashny boy and sistema, which is this unique Russian martial art that's all about moving smoothly and efficiently to take down opponents. They're also total pros with firearms, spending countless hours on the range practicing with different weapons under stressful conditions. Recruits learn to shoot while moving, handle unexpected malfunctions, and stay cool in high-pressure situations. And let's not forget explosives. Trainees are taught how to use bombs and other devices for sabotage and demolition missions. It's as intense as it sounds. Spetsnaz training also prepares operatives to handle any environment they might end up in, whether it's a dense forest, snowy mountains, urban chaos, or freezing Arctic tundra. They learn to parachute out of planes, dive underwater, and survive with minimal supplies. The goal is to make sure they're ready for anything, anywhere. On top of that, recruits are trained to stay calm and focused no matter how stressful or painful a situation gets. Some of their training scenarios are so extreme, they're almost like torture, but it's all meant to toughen them up for the real deal. What's really cool is how Spetsnaz focuses on preparing operatives for missions worldwide. They study foreign languages and cultures so they can blend in or communicate effectively when working in different countries. Knowing how to navigate local customs and understand people's behavior is a big part of their intelligence work. Their techniques can be pretty wild too. For example, some training involves live ammo, so recruits get used to the sound and feel of real gunfire. There's even a drill where they get shot at while wearing body armor. It's all about building confidence under fire. They also train with unconventional weapons like ballistic knives and even their shovels, which double as deadly melee tools in close combat. 5. UK Marines' tough training. The UK Royal Marines have one of the toughest and most intense training programs out there, designed to turn recruits into some of the most skilled and resilient soldiers in the world. It lasts around 32 weeks, and every part of it is designed to push recruits to their limits, both physically and mentally. By the end of it, these guys are ready to handle anything, anywhere. It all kicks off with the Commando course, which is basically the heart of the whole training process. This is where recruits face a series of brutal challenges meant to test their strength, endurance, and mental toughness. Along the way, they're constantly put through fitness tests to make sure they're meeting the high physical standards that the Royal Marines demand. Falling behind isn't really an option. You've got to keep up or get left behind. One of the toughest parts of training is the mud run. Picture a 20-mile slog through thick, sticky mud, where every step feels like you're dragging a car tire. It's exhausting, but it's not just about showing off how strong you are. The whole point is to teach teamwork, because you can't get through it without helping your mates out. Then there are the obstacle courses. These aren't your average playground setups. They're built to mimic combat situations. So you're climbing, crawling, and figuring out how to navigate all kinds of tricky setups. It's as much about problem solving as it is about physical strength. Of course, being a Royal Marine means knowing how to fight, and their combat training is no joke. They spend a ton of time practicing with firearms, getting comfortable with everything from basic rifles to more specialized weapons. It's not just about shooting straight, it's about staying calm and hitting your target even when things get chaotic. On top of that, they learn hand-to-hand combat skills. These aren't just any moves. They take techniques from different martial arts, giving them a full set of tools for close quarters fighting. The survival skills part of training is all about learning how to handle tough environments. Recruits learn how to navigate tricky terrain, stay hidden using camouflage, and avoid getting caught if they're behind enemy lines. There's even a module focused on jungle warfare, which teaches them how to survive and fight in thick, dense forests where visibility is low and the conditions can be brutal. 6. U.S. Navy's drown proofing. Drown proofing is a tough and important part of United States Navy SEAL training, especially in the basic underwater demolition and SEAL school. It's all about teaching candidates how to survive in water, even when things are at their worst, like when they're tired, restrained, or disoriented. It's not just about swimming, it's about staying calm, thinking clearly, and handling panic when you're in a life or death situation. The main goal of drown proofing is to help SEAL candidates stay afloat and alive, even if they're exhausted or restrained. They're taught to remain calm in rough water and to avoid freaking out, because losing control in those situations could be deadly. A big part of this training focuses on mental toughness, as candidates have to face their fears and learn how to control their panic when things go wrong. First, they learn basic techniques for staying above water, like treading water without using their hands, which sounds harder than it seems. They also learn body movements that help them keep a vertical position in the water without burning all their energy. A big part of it is about being prepared for the worst-case scenarios, like being tied up, having their eyes closed, or even being in the dark. This simulates real-life situations where they could be captured or disoriented. Breath control is a huge part of this training. SEAL candidates are taught how to manage their breathing, which is key to conserving energy and staying calm. If you're out of breath and panicking, you're in trouble. This whole process is designed to build confidence in the water, so they know they can handle any aquatic emergency without losing control. But drowning proofing isn't the only part of SEAL training. It's part of a bigger, multi-phase program that focuses on water skills and other essential operations. In the first phase, candidates do a ton of physical conditioning and get introduced to swimming techniques to prepare them for the serious stuff. The second phase is all about combat diving, where they learn how to use scuba gear, which is crucial for stealthy underwater operations. In the third phase, they focus more on land warfare, but it still reinforces all the water skills they learned earlier, because at the end of the day, water is just as important as land for SEALs. 7. Taiwanese Navy's Hell Week. Taiwan's amphibious reconnaissance and patrol unit, known as the Frogmen, go through one of the toughest training programs around, called Hell Week. This week is part of a bigger 10-week course that's meant to turn Marines into elite soldiers ready for amphibious warfare and special operations. It's so intense. It's often compared to the boot camps of U.S. Navy SEALs. Hell Week happens at the end of this 10-week program and is the ultimate test of everything the candidates have learned. To even get into this training, Marines need to volunteer, which shows a lot of commitment. These guys are already in the military, so they've got a lot of experience, but this is next level. The training takes place at Zuoying Naval Base in southern Taiwan, and it's no walk in the park. The Marines face all kinds of tough conditions, like extreme weather, freezing cold water, and exercises that push them beyond their limits. The whole point is to break them down and build them back up mentally and physically. The training focuses a lot on physical endurance, so they do long marches, hard workouts, and spend a lot of time in the water, all while being completely exhausted. One of the toughest parts is the sleep deprivation. They don't get much rest, so they have to keep going even when they're totally wiped out. This really tests their mental toughness and ability to perform under pressure. A big chunk of Hell Week is spent training for water survival. They have to tread water in full combat gear and do drills that simulate real combat situations in the water. It's all about staying calm and staying alive in tough conditions. One of the hardest challenges during Hell Week is called the Road to Heaven. Candidates have to crawl along a 50-meter path made of sharp coral rocks, and drill instructors give them strict orders to follow. To make it worse, if they have any cuts or wounds, instructors sometimes pour salt water on them to make the pain even worse. If they mess up or fail to meet the standards, they might have to go back and start over, which really tests their determination. Hell Week has a very high dropout rate because it's so grueling. Out of a recent group of 31 candidates, only 15 managed to finish. If you do make it through, though, you earn the title of ARP Frogman, meaning you've passed one of the hardest training courses around, and are ready for elite amphibious operations. 8. Brutal snow training. In 2017, US and South Korean Marines teamed up for a tough winter training exercise in South Korea, aimed at boosting their skills for operations in freezing, snowy conditions. This was especially important because tensions in the region were high, and the military wanted to make sure both forces could work well together in tough situations. The training lasted about 3 weeks, and it was all about preparing soldiers for the challenges of fighting in cold weather. The exercises took place in South Korea's mountainous regions, where the conditions were perfect for simulating what it would be like to fight in winter. The main goal was to teach soldiers how to stay effective when snow and freezing temperatures make everything harder, from moving troops around to keeping supplies coming in. One of the big focuses was making sure the US and South Korean forces could work together without any problems. They practiced coordinating their moves and tactics, which is really important in joint operations. They needed to make sure that if they were thrown into a real combat situation, they could support each other and execute missions smoothly. The training involved a variety of tough activities. Soldiers did intense combat drills, which tested both their endurance and their ability to use tactics while dealing with freezing conditions. They also worked on survival skills, like how to build shelters in the snow, navigate through it, and manage limited supplies when things get rough. To top it all off, they did live fire exercises, practicing their shooting and handling of weapons, even while dealing with the challenges of winter weather. It wasn't easy, though. The weather was brutal, temperatures dropped way below freezing, and there was a lot of snow, making everything harder. Soldiers had to push themselves both physically and mentally to get through it. The whole point was to make sure they could stay strong and keep fighting, even when the conditions were working against them. By the end of the training, both sides were more prepared for any cold weather operations that could come their way. 9. Israeli Sayeret Matkal Secret Training. The Israeli Sayeret Matkal is one of the toughest and most respected special forces units out there, known for its brutal training and high-risk missions like counterterrorism and hostage rescues. It's part of the Israel Defense Forces and has been around since 1957. If you want to join, you need to go through one of the toughest selection and training programs in the world. First, to even get a shot at becoming part of Sayeret Matkal, you have to pass the selection process called Yom Sayarat, or Commando Day. This is where the real tests begin. They put candidates through intense physical challenges like running up steep sand hills, carrying heavy jerry cans, and doing team exercises that force you to work together under extreme stress. Oh, and there's a sleep deprivation part too, where they see how well you can handle mental exhaustion. If you make it through that, you move on to something called the Gibish Mat Call, which is a 6-day qualification course where you're pushed even harder. Only the best make it to the full 16-month training. Once you're in, the training itself is seriously tough. You've got to be in peak physical shape. That means things like running 3 kilometers in under 14 minutes, doing weighted exercises like squats and pull-ups, and suicide runs while wearing a weighted vest. But it's not just about strength, you also learn a ton of combat skills, like advanced hand-to-hand fighting, shooting, and weapons handling. These skills are taught so you can perform well under extreme pressure, simulating real-life situations where you have to make split-second decisions. Survival training is another huge part of their program. It includes learning how to survive in hostile environments and how to resist if you're captured. Basically, learning how to stay alive no matter what happens. You also go through a lot of navigation training, where you learn how to find your way through tough terrain, whether you're alone or working in pairs. You have to be able to operate in enemy territory without help. The final test before becoming a full member of Sayeret Matkal is the infamous Beret March. This is a 1 to 20-kilometer trek over 4 days, where you march through tough terrain, carrying heavy gear. It's a massive endurance test, and it shows whether you've got the physical stamina and teamwork skills to be a part of Israel's elite force. If you survive that, you earn your Maroon Beret and become part of one of the most elite special forces units in the world. 10. Deadly Marine Training. The Philippine Marine Corps is known for having some of the toughest training programs out there, preparing soldiers for the kinds of challenges they will face in the Philippines' tricky and often dangerous environments. This includes everything from dense jungles to conflict with separatist groups. The training is demanding both physically and mentally, making sure recruits become resilient and adaptable to handle whatever comes their way. The first phase of training lasts about 6 months, and it's all about turning regular civilians into disciplined Marines. During this time, recruits go through intense physical conditioning and learn important combat skills and survival techniques. It's designed to get them ready for real combat situations, where they might be fighting in difficult terrain or facing tough enemies. Recruits take on a variety of exercises to test their physical strength and endurance. They'll face obstacle courses, long marches, and combat drills that simulate the conditions of an actual battlefield. The idea is to push people to their limits so they can perform well under extreme stress. Once basic training is completed, some of the best recruits move on to more specialized training. These recruits may join the Force Recon Battalion, a top-tier unit that takes on high-stakes missions. Here, they get even more intense training, including airborne operations, jungle warfare tactics, and maritime strategies. The physical demands are even greater, and they learn how to handle complex situations, often deep behind enemy lines. Do you think the brutal training is even necessary, or is it all just for show?